I think I didn't do anything wrong, just tried to find a little happiness when my marriage felt empty. But now, sitting at my kitchen table with legal papers in front of me, I can't help but wonder how everything turned upside down so fast. I never thought my husband would fight back like this, or that everyone would start looking at me as the problem. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The morning sun filtered through our kitchen blinds as I prepared breakfast for my family. Connor sat at the table, laptop open, typing away at some code that seemed more important than talking to his wife. Our 7-year-old daughter Mila pushed cereal around her bowl, sensing the tension that had become our new normal. "Connor, can you at least look up from that screen?" I asked, setting his coffee down with more force than necessary. "Your daughter is trying to tell you about her school play." He glanced up briefly, his brown eyes tired behind his glasses. "Sorry, Mila. Tell me about the play." But the damage was done. Mila had already retreated into herself, the way she did when Mommy and Daddy weren't getting along. I felt that familiar surge of resentment toward my husband. When had he become so distant? When had work become more important than his family? "I have to leave early today," Connor said, closing his laptop. "Big presentation to the client." "Of course you do," I muttered under my breath. He paused at the kitchen doorway. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, Connor. Just go save the world with your software." I turned away, focusing on wiping down counters that were already clean. After he left, I dropped Mila off at school and headed to my job as an office administrator at Henderson Marketing. The work wasn't glamorous, but it paid decent money and gave me something to focus on besides my crumbling marriage. That's where I met Eliot Tran. He'd started 3 months ago as a junior marketing coordinator, fresh out of college with bright eyes and an easy smile that made everyone in the office take notice, including me. "Morning, Seraphine," he said, appearing at my desk with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this. You looked stressed yesterday." I accepted the coffee gratefully, our fingers brushing for just a moment. "Thanks, Eliot. You're too sweet." "Just looking out for my favorite administrator," he said with a grin that made my stomach flutter in a way it hadn't in years. As he walked away, I caught myself watching him go. When was the last time Connor had brought me coffee without being asked? When was the last time he'd noticed I was stressed? My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Marcia. "How are things with Connor? You seemed upset at dinner last week." I typed back, "He's just been working a lot. You know how men get wrapped up in their careers." But even as I wrote it, I knew it was more than that. Connor and I had been growing apart for months, maybe even years. We were like roommates sharing a house and a child, going through the motions of marriage without any of the connection. That evening, Connor came home late again. Mila was already in bed, and I was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, watching some mindless reality TV. "Sorry I'm late," he said, loosening his tie. "The presentation ran long. Then the client wanted to go over some changes." I responded without looking away from the screen. He sat down next to me, and I could feel him studying my face. "Seraphine, are we okay? You've seemed distant lately." The irony wasn't lost on me. "I've seemed distant? Connor, when was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked about my day, or noticed what I was wearing, or—" I trailed off, frustrated. "I notice," he said quietly. "I notice you've been working late more often. I notice you're always on your phone now. I notice you barely look at me anymore." His words stung because they held a grain of truth. I had been working late more often, mostly because Eliot and I had fallen into a habit of grabbing drinks after work to discuss projects. And yes, I was on my phone more, exchanging texts with someone who actually seemed interested in what I had to say. "Maybe if you were around more, we wouldn't have this problem," I said, deflecting. Connor sighed and stood up. "I'm trying to provide for our family, Seraphine. Everything I do is for you and Mila." No, everything you do is for your career. There's a difference. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hurt, suspicion? I couldn't tell. I'm going to bed, he said finally. After he left, I pulled out my phone and opened my messages with Eliot. Me. Another fun evening at home. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. Eliot. His loss. Any man who doesn't appreciate you is an idiot. Me. You always know what to say. Eliot. Just being honest, you deserve so much better. I smiled at the screen, feeling that warm flutter again. Eliot understood me in a way Connor never had. He listened when I talked, laughed at my jokes, made me feel attractive and interesting again. Was it wrong to enjoy the attention? Maybe, but Connor had checked out of our marriage long ago. I was just trying to find a little happiness. The next morning, Connor's mother Janice called while I was getting ready for work. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, though her tone was cooler than usual. "I was wondering if you and Connor might come to dinner this weekend. It's been too long since we've all been together." "I'll have to check with Connor," I said, applying my lipstick in the mirror. "You know how busy he's been." "Yes, well, work is important," Janice said carefully. "But family should come first. I hope you both remember that." There was something in her voice that made me pause. "Of course, Janice. Family is everything." But as I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was trying to tell me something. The Henderson marketing office buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy. I settled at my desk with my coffee, trying to focus on emails and scheduling, but my mind kept wandering to the text conversation I'd had with Eliot over the weekend. He'd sent me a photo of himself hiking, shirtless and grinning at the camera. "Wish you were here to enjoy the view," he'd written. I'd stared at that photo longer than I should have, imagining what it would be like to be there with him, free from the suffocating routine of my marriage. "Earth to Seraphine," came a voice from beside my desk. It was my coworker Jessica, holding a stack of files. "You look like you're a million miles away." "Just tired," I said, quickly closing my phone. "Mila had a nightmare last night." "Ugh, I don't know how you do it," Jessica said. "Marriage, kids, work. Sometimes I think I'm better off single." Before I could respond, Eliot appeared at my desk. "Ladies, what's the gossip this morning?" Jessica giggled. "We were just talking about how exhausting married life can be." Eliot's eyes met mine. "Well, if someone's not making you happy, maybe it's time to reconsider your options." The comment hung in the air, loaded with meaning. Jessica raised an eyebrow and looked between us. "I should get back to work," I said quickly, but I could feel the heat in my cheeks. Later that morning, I found myself in the break room with a group of co-workers, including Jessica, our receptionist Amy, and two women from accounting, Linda and Carol. "So, did everyone see that article about women in their 30s rediscovering themselves?" Amy asked, stirring her coffee. It was all about how some women realized they settled too early. "Oh God, yes," Linda said. "I sent it to my sister. She's been married 15 years and just realized she's basically living with a stranger." "That's so sad," Carol added. "But also kind of common, right? People grow apart." I found myself nodding along. "It's more common than people want to admit. Sometimes you wake up and realize the person you married isn't the person you thought they were." "Is everything okay at home, Seraphine?" Jessica asked with concern. I hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "Connor and I are just in different places right now. He's so focused on work, and I feel like I'm invisible half the time." "That sucks," Amy said. "You deserve someone who appreciates you." "Honestly," I continued, encouraged by their sympathy, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd made different choices. What if I'd waited longer to get married? What if I'd been more adventurous?" The women exchanged knowing looks. "It's never too late to be adventurous," Linda said with a sly smile. "I mean, within reason." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I had a feeling I knew. "Well," Carol lowered her voice, "my cousin Sarah went through a rough patch with her husband. She ended up having a little distraction. It actually helped her figure out what she really wanted. A distraction? I played dumb. You know, Amy said, grinning. A little excitement on the side. Nothing serious, just something to remind her she was still alive. I laughed, trying to sound casual. That sounds dangerous. Only if you get caught, Jessica said, or if you're not careful about it. Just then, Eliot walked into the break room. The conversation died as he grabbed a soda from the refrigerator. Don't stop talking on my account, he said with that charming smile. What are we discussing? Oh, just life choices, I said, acutely aware of how he was looking at me. Life choices are important, he said. Sometimes you have to take risks to find out what really makes you happy. After he left, the women looked at me with new interest. Okay, spill, Jessica said. What's going on with you and the new guy? Nothing, I said quickly. We're just friends. Friends who look at each other like that? Amy laughed. Honey, that's not friendship. It's complicated, I admitted. It doesn't have to be, Linda said. You're not happy at home, and there's an attractive man who's clearly interested. What's complicated about that? I thought about Connor, sitting at his laptop that morning, barely acknowledging my goodbye kiss. I thought about the way Eliot's face lit up when he saw me, the way he actually listened when I talked. I just don't want to make a mistake, I said. The only mistake would be staying miserable, Carol said firmly. That afternoon, I was working at my desk when my phone buzzed with a notification from our office group chat. Someone had posted a poll. Who do you think would make the best couple in the office? The options included several pairs of coworkers, including one that made my heart skip, Seraphine and Eliot. I stared at the screen, shocked. The poll was anonymous, so I had no idea who had posted it, but within minutes, people were voting and commenting. OMG, yes, they would be so cute together. I ship it. Wait, isn't Seraphine married? Married doesn't mean dead. I felt a mix of panic and excitement. People had noticed the chemistry between Eliot and me, but what if Connor somehow found out about this? I quickly typed in the chat. Haha, very funny guys. Some of us are happily married, thank you very much. But even as I wrote it, the word happily felt like a lie. Eliot appeared at my desk a few minutes later. So, I saw the poll, he said quietly. It's just office gossip, I said, not meeting his eyes. People are bored. Are they wrong, though? He asked. I finally looked up at him. Eliot, I know you're married, Seraphine, but I also know you're not happy, and I think we have something special. My heart was pounding. We can't talk about this here. Then let's talk about it somewhere else. Have dinner with me tonight. I can't. Connor works late every night. You told me so yourself. One dinner, Seraphine, just to talk. I stared into his dark eyes, seeing everything I felt I was missing in my marriage. Attention, desire, excitement. Okay, I whispered. One dinner. That evening, I told Connor I had to work late on a project deadline. He barely looked up from his laptop. Will you be able to pick up Mila from soccer practice? I asked. Yeah, sure, he said absently. And maybe you could start dinner. There's chicken in the fridge. I stood there for a moment, waiting for him to ask about my project or when I'd be home, but he was already lost in his code again. I'll see you later, I said. See you, he replied without looking up. As I drove to meet Eliot at a small Italian restaurant across town, I told myself this wasn't cheating. It was just dinner with a friend who made me feel alive again. But deep down, I knew it was more than that, and I knew there was no going back. 3 weeks had passed since that first dinner with Eliot, and what started as just talking had quickly evolved into something much more complicated. We'd been meeting regularly after work, sharing intimate conversations and stolen moments that made me feel like a teenager again. I was pregnant. The test had been positive for a week now, and the timing was problematic. Connor and I had been intimate exactly once in the past 2 months, a perfunctory encounter that felt more like obligation than passion. But Eliot and I had been together several times, caught up in the excitement of our secret affair. I sat in my car outside Mila's school, staring at my phone. I'd taken a screenshot of the pregnancy test and, in a moment of reckless impulse, had created a private group chat with my closest girlfriends. Jessica, Amy, Linda, and Carol from work, plus my sister Iris and 2 neighbors, Beth and Rachel. The message I'd sent made my stomach churn now. Ladies, I need your help with something interesting. I'm pregnant, but I'm not 100% sure who the father is. What would you do? The responses had been immediate and varied. Jessica, OMG Seraphine, are you serious right now? Amy, wait, what? I thought you and Connor weren't active. Linda, girl, you need to figure this out ASAP. Iris, Seraphine, please tell me you're joking. I'd followed up with, I'm not joking. It's either Connor or someone else. I know it sounds crazy, but my marriage has been dead for months. I found someone who actually cares about me. The conversation had exploded from there, with half the women supporting me and the other half expressing shock and concern. But what I hadn't expected was for someone to screenshot our conversation and create an anonymous poll in a broader social media group that included friends, neighbors, and even some of Connor's co-workers. The poll read, "A friend of mine is pregnant but isn't sure if it's her husband's baby or her boyfriend's. What should she do? A. Tell the husband immediately. B. Get a DNA test first. C. Keep it secret until she figures it out. D. Leave the husband for the boyfriend." Now, sitting outside the school, I watched in horror as the poll gained traction. People were commenting, speculating, and some were even guessing it was about me. My phone rang. It was my mother, Marcia. "Seraphine, honey, I just got a very disturbing call from Janice Hollis. She says there are rumors going around about you and Connor." "What's going on?" My heart sank. "Mum, it's complicated." "Complicated how? Are you having problems in your marriage?" "Connor and I have been having issues for a while. He's never home, he doesn't pay attention to me or Mila, and I met someone who makes me feel valued again." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mum, Seraphine, please tell me you didn't cheat on your husband." "It's not that simple. Connor checked out of our marriage a long time ago. I was lonely and—" "Oh, honey, what have you done?" Before I could answer, another call was coming in. "Connor." "Mum, I have to go. Connor's calling." "Seraphine, we need to talk about this properly. Come over tonight." I switched to Connor's call. "Hi." "Seraphine, I just got a very strange call from my mother. She says people are talking about some poll online. Do you know anything about this?" My mouth went dry. "What kind of poll?" "Something about a woman who's pregnant and doesn't know who the father is. My mother seems to think it might be about us. I told her that was ridiculous because you would never—" He paused. "You would never do something like that, right?" The weight of his trust hit me like a truck. "Connor, Right, Seraphine. We should talk when you get home." "I'm coming home now. Pick up Mila and meet me there." The line went dead. That evening, I found myself at Brewster's Cafe with my group of friends, having convinced Connor I needed to clear the air about the rumors. What I really wanted was to control the narrative before everything exploded. "Okay, ladies," I said, settling into our usual corner booth. "I know you've all seen the poll, and I know some of you have questions." Jessica leaned forward. "Seraphine, people are saying it's about you. Is it true?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, it's true. I'm pregnant, and there's a chance it might not be Connor's." The table fell silent. Beth and Rachel, who hadn't been part of the original group chat, looked shocked. "How is that possible?" Rachel asked. "Because my marriage has been dead for over a year," I said, feeling defensive. "Connor barely acknowledges I exist. He works constantly, never helps with Mila, and treats me like a roommate he's stuck with. When someone else showed interest in me, actually listened to me and made me feel attractive again, I made a choice. But you're married, Beth said quietly. Technically, yes, but emotionally. Connor and I have been divorced for months. He just hasn't noticed because he's too busy with his precious career. Amy reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We're not judging you, honey, but this is a really complicated situation. I know it is. That's why I need your support right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Have you told Connor? Linda asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you all first, get some perspective. What about the other guy? Carol asked. How does he feel about all this? I hesitated. Eliot had been distant since I'd told him about the pregnancy. He'd said he needed time to think, which wasn't exactly the supportive response I'd hoped for. He's processing, I said. Seraphine, Jessica said carefully, don't you think Connor has a right to know what's going on? Of course he does, but I need to figure out how to tell him without destroying everything. Mila needs stability, and if Connor reacts badly... If he reacts badly... Beth's voice was sharp. Seraphine, you cheated on your husband and might be carrying another man's baby. How exactly do you expect him to react? I felt tears welling up. I expect him to understand that I was lonely and neglected. I expect him to take some responsibility for the state of our marriage. That's not fair, Rachel said. Marriage problems don't justify cheating. Easy for you to say, I snapped. Your husband actually talks to you. The tension at the table was palpable. I could see my friends were divided, some sympathetic to my situation, others clearly disapproving. Look, I said, trying to regain control. I know I made mistakes, but I can't change what happened. I need to figure out how to move forward in a way that protects Mila and doesn't completely destroy our family. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping around, came a cold voice from behind me. I turned to see Janice Hollis standing there, her face flushed with anger. Behind her were Connor's father David and, to my horror, Connor himself. Janice, I started, but she held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I came here hoping to defend you, hoping the rumors weren't true. But I can see from your friends' faces that everything I've heard is accurate. Connor stepped forward, his face pale but controlled. Is it true, Seraphine? Are you pregnant with another man's baby? The entire cafe seemed to go quiet. I could feel eyes on us from every table. Connor, please, not here. Answer the question. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw something I'd never seen before. Not anger, but devastation. The kind of deep, soul-crushing hurt that comes from betrayal by someone you trusted completely. I don't know, I whispered. You don't know if you're pregnant, or you don't know who the father is. I don't know who the father is. David put a hand on Connor's shoulder, but Connor shrugged it off. How long? Connor asked. Connor, please. How long have you been cheating on me? The word cheating hung in the air like a slap. I could hear whispers starting at nearby tables. 2 months, I admitted. Connor nodded slowly, as if processing information. 2 months, while I was working extra hours to save for Mila's college fund. While I was trying to get that promotion so I could provide better for our family. You were never home, I said, my voice rising. You barely talked to me. I felt like I was invisible. So you decided to sleep with someone else instead of talking to me about it? I tried to talk to you. You were always too busy, always had something more important to do. Janice stepped forward. There is no excuse for what you've done, Seraphine. None. You don't understand what it's been like, I said, tears streaming down my face. Living with someone who treats you like you don't exist. Connor's voice was quiet but clear. I never treated you like you didn't exist. I worked hard because I thought that's what you wanted. A nice house, financial security, a good future for Mila. I thought I was being a good husband and father. By ignoring your family, by providing for them, but apparently that wasn't enough for you. He turned and walked toward the exit. David and Janice followed. but not before Janice fixed me with a look of pure disgust. "You've destroyed my son's life," she said. "I hope it was worth it." As they left, I became aware of the silence in the cafe. Everyone was staring at me. My friends at the table looked uncomfortable, embarrassed to be associated with the scene. "Maybe we should go," Amy said quietly. But as we gathered our things, I heard whispers from other tables. "Can you believe her? Poor guy. And they have a kid too. I'd divorce her in a heartbeat. What kind of person does that to their family?" Walking out of that cafe, I realized that everything had changed. The secret was out, and there was no going back. But what I didn't realize yet was that Connor's quiet, controlled reaction wasn't weakness, it was strategy. The next few days passed in a blur of uncomfortable conversations and mounting tension. Connor had moved into the guest bedroom and was speaking to me only when necessary, usually about Mila's schedule or household logistics. His politeness was somehow worse than anger would have been. Mila, sensitive to the change in atmosphere, had become clingy and quiet. She kept asking why Daddy was sleeping in the other room and why Mommy was crying so much. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" she asked one morning over breakfast. The question hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you ask that, sweetie?" "Because Tommy's parents got divorced, and first his daddy moved to the guest room, and then he moved away completely." I knelt down beside her chair. "Daddy and I are just having some grown-up problems right now, but no matter what happens, we both love you very much." It wasn't really an answer, and we both knew it. That afternoon, I received a text from Iris. "Mum told me what happened. We need to talk. I'm coming over." When my sister arrived, her expression was a mixture of concern and disappointment that I'd seen too often lately. "Seraphine, what were you thinking?" she asked without preamble. "Hello to you too," I said, leading her into the living room. "I'm serious. Mom is beside herself. Connor's family is furious, and according to Rachel, half the neighborhood is talking about what happened at the cafe." I sank onto the couch. "I know it looks bad. It doesn't just look bad, it is bad. You cheated on your husband and got pregnant by another man. We don't know that for sure. Seraphine, stop. Just stop with the deflection. Even if the baby is Connor's, you still had an affair. You still betrayed your family." I felt the familiar surge of defensiveness. "You don't understand what my marriage was like. Connor was never present, never engaged. I felt like a single mother most of the time." Iris sat down across from me. "So you talked to him about it, right? You went to counseling. You tried to work on your marriage before you decided to sleep with someone else." I was quiet. "That's what I thought. Seraphine, marriage is hard work. All marriages go through rough patches. That doesn't give you permission to cheat." "Easy for you to say. You're not married." "No, I'm not. But I've watched you and Connor for 7 years, and I've seen how much he loves you and Mila. Maybe he wasn't perfect, but he was trying to build a life for your family. By working all the time and ignoring us. By providing for you. Do you think your nice house and Mila's private school and your family vacations just happened by magic? Connor worked those extra hours for you." I wanted to argue, but something in Iris's voice gave me pause. "He's a good man, Seraphine. And you threw it away for what? Some excitement with a guy from your office?" "It wasn't just excitement. Eliot understands me in ways Connor never did." "Really? Then where is he now? Where's all that understanding when you need it most?" The question stung because it was accurate. Eliot had been increasingly distant since I'd told him about the pregnancy. Our text conversations had dwindled to polite check-ins, and he'd cancelled our last 2 coffee dates. "He's processing," I said weakly. "He's running," Iris corrected, "and you're left here to deal with the consequences alone." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Through the window, I could see Janice and David's car in the driveway. "Great," I muttered. When I opened the door, Janice brushed past me without invitation. David followed, looking apologetic but determined. "We need to talk," Janice announced. "Hello, Iris," David said politely to my sister. "Would it be possible to have a private conversation with Seraphine?" I'll go check on Mila, Iris said, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Once we were alone, Janice fixed me with a cold stare. I want to understand something, Seraphine. Help me make sense of how you could do this to my son. Janice, I know you're upset. Upset? Her voice was sharp. My son came to our house last night and broke down crying. Crying, Seraphine? I haven't seen Connor cry since he was 12 years old. So, yes, I'm a little more than upset. The image of Connor crying hit me harder than I expected. In all our years together, I'd rarely seen him show that kind of vulnerability. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, I said. But you did mean to cheat on your husband, David said quietly. That was a conscious choice. Connor and I were having problems. Every marriage has problems, Janice exploded. You think David and I haven't had rough patches? You think there weren't times when I felt neglected or he felt unappreciated? That's what marriage is, working through the hard times together, not running to someone else when things get difficult. You don't understand what it was like. Then explain it to me. Explain how my son, who worked 60-hour weeks to provide for his family, who never missed one of Mila's school events, who talked about you and his daughter constantly, explain how he deserved this. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. When she put it that way, my justifications sounded hollow. He loves you, David said sadly. Even now, after everything, he's more heartbroken than angry. Do you have any idea how rare that kind of love is? If he loved me so much, why did he make me feel invisible? Maybe because you stopped trying to be visible, Janice said. When was the last time you asked Connor about his work? When was the last time you showed interest in his projects or his goals? When was the last time you made an effort to connect with him instead of just waiting for him to come to you? The questions hung in the air, and I realized I couldn't answer them. Marriage is a partnership, David continued. Both people have to work at it. If you were feeling disconnected, the solution was to work on reconnecting, not to find someone else. I made a mistake, I said, tears starting to flow. I know that now, but I can't change what happened. I can only try to figure out how to move forward. That depends on Connor, Janice said, and honestly, I don't know if he should forgive you. I don't know if I would. What about Mila? What about keeping our family together? You should have thought about Mila before you started your affair, Janice replied coldly. That little girl is going to be the real victim in all of this. After they left, I sat alone in my living room, their words echoing in my head. For the first time since this all began, I allowed myself to really think about Connor's perspective. He had worked long hours, but he'd never missed important events. He'd been distracted lately, but he'd been under pressure for a big promotion. He wasn't the most emotionally expressive person, but he'd never been cruel or neglectful, and I'd repaid his dedication by sleeping with another man. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliot. Hey, can we talk? I think we need to discuss where things stand. I stared at the message, knowing what it meant. He was going to end things, leave me to deal with the mess alone while he moved on with his life. But before I could respond, Connor walked through the front door. He looked tired, older somehow than he had just a few days ago. We need to talk, he said simply. Okay. He sat down across from me, maintaining careful distance. I've been thinking about what you said at the cafe, about feeling invisible, about me not being present. I waited, not sure where this was going. Maybe you're right. Maybe I did get too focused on work, too caught up in providing and not enough in connecting. If that's true, I'm sorry. His apology caught me off guard. I'd been expecting anger, accusations, demands. Connor. But, he continued, that doesn't excuse what you did. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling, taken a vacation, figured something out together. Instead, you made a choice to betray our marriage and our family. I know, I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? The question was fair, and it deserved an honest answer. Both, I think. I'm sorry I hurt you, and I'm sorry everything came out the way it did. Connor nodded. I need you to know that I've spoken to a lawyer. My heart stopped. Connor, please. I'm not filing for divorce yet, but I need to understand my options, especially when it comes to protecting Mila's future. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to let my daughter suffer because of choices you made. If this baby isn't mine, there are going to be consequences. Legal consequences. For the first time, I saw something in Connor's eyes that scared me. Not anger, but resolve. The quiet determination of a man who'd been pushed too far. I love you, Seraphine. I've loved you for 9 years. But I love my daughter more, and I won't let her grow up thinking that what you did was acceptable. He stood up to leave, then paused at the doorway. The DNA test is scheduled for next week. After that, we'll know where we stand. As he walked away, I realized that my husband, the man I'd thought was weak and inattentive, was actually much stronger than I'd ever imagined, and I was about to find out just how strong. The DNA test results arrived on a Tuesday morning that felt like the longest day of my life. Connor had insisted on being present when we opened them, along with both our lawyers. The sterile conference room at Miller & Associates law firm felt like a courtroom where my future was about to be decided. "Before we open these," said Connor's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells, "I want to make sure everyone understands the implications of what we're about to learn." My lawyer, a kind older man named Robert Chen, whom my mother had found for me, nodded grimly. My client is prepared for any outcome. But I wasn't prepared. Not really. For weeks, I'd been clinging to the hope that the baby was Connor's, that somehow we could work through this and rebuild our family. The alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. Connor sat across from me, his face unreadable. He'd been like this for days, calm, methodical, almost businesslike in his interactions with me. It was more unsettling than anger would have been. Patricia opened the envelope and read the contents silently. Her expression told me everything I needed to know before she spoke. "The test confirms that Connor Hollis is not the biological father of the child Seraphine is carrying." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the room spinning, my carefully constructed hopes crumbling around me. "No," I whispered, "that can't be right. Run it again." "DNA tests are 99.9% accurate," Patricia said without sympathy. "There's no mistake." I looked at Connor, expecting to see satisfaction or vindication in his eyes. Instead, I saw something worse. Sadness. Even after everything I'd done, part of him had been hoping the baby was his. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Patricia opened a folder and spread several documents across the table. "Now, we discuss the terms of separation and custody arrangements." "Separation?" I looked at Connor desperately. "Connor, please, we can work through this. We can go to counseling, we can—" "Seraphine," he said quietly, "you're carrying another man's baby. What exactly do you think we're going to work through? I made a mistake, but I love you. I love our family." "If you loved our family, you wouldn't have destroyed it." Patricia cleared her throat. "Mr. Hollis has prepared a comprehensive proposal for moving forward. Given the circumstances, I think you'll find the terms quite reasonable." She slid a document toward me. As I read through it, my heart sank further with each paragraph. Connor was seeking primary custody of Mila, with supervised visitation for me initially, moving to standard visitation after 6 months if I demonstrated stability. He wanted the house, which made sense since he'd paid for most of it and would be Mila's primary residence. I would be responsible for my own legal fees and any costs associated with my pregnancy and the baby's care. "This is too harsh," Robert said, reviewing the terms. "My client made a mistake, but she's still Mila's mother." "A mistake?" Patricia's voice was ice cold. "Mr. Chen, your client had a months-long affair, got pregnant by another man, and then tried to pass the child off as her husband's. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of deliberate deception." "Connor," I pleaded, "you can't take Mila away from me." "I'm not taking her away. but I am making sure she has stability and a good example of how relationships should work. I can provide stability. Patricia pulled out another folder. Can you? Because we have evidence suggesting otherwise. She spread out printed screenshots of text messages, social media posts, and photos. My stomach dropped as I recognized them. Conversations with Eliot, posts from the office group chat, even the infamous poll that had started this whole public mess. Where did you get these? I demanded. Your affair partner was quite cooperative once he realized the potential legal implications of his involvement with a married woman, Patricia said smoothly. I stared at the documents in shock. Eliot gave you these? Mr. Tran was concerned about protecting his own interests. He provided us with all communications between you two, as well as a detailed timeline of your relationship. The betrayal cut deep. While I'd been hoping we could somehow work things out, Eliot had been covering his own tracks by throwing me under the bus. He also provided this, Patricia continued, sliding another paper across the table. It was a signed statement from Eliot, detailing our affair and explicitly stating that he had no intention of pursuing a relationship with me or taking responsibility for the child. He's abandoning the baby? I asked, horrified. He's protecting himself legally, Patricia corrected, which is more than you did for your family. Robert leaned over to whisper in my ear. Seraphine, given the evidence they have, I strongly recommend you consider accepting these terms. If this goes to court, it could be much worse. Worse how? They could argue for supervised visitation permanently. They could seek to have you pay Connor's legal fees. They could make your affair part of the public record. I looked around the table at the faces staring back at me. Patricia, coldly professional. Robert, sympathetic but realistic. And Connor, the man I'd shared a life with for 9 years, looking at me like I was a stranger. I need time to think, I said. You have until Friday, Patricia replied. After that, we file with the court and let a judge decide. As we left the law office, Connor walked me to my car. For a moment, it felt like old times, him being protective and considerate even when things were difficult. Connor, I said, I know I don't deserve it, but is there any chance we could try to work this out privately, without lawyers and courts? He was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what the hardest part of this has been? He finally asked. What? It's not the cheating, as much as that hurt. It's not even the pregnancy. It's the lying. For months, you looked me in the eye every day and lied to me. When I asked if you were okay, when I asked about working late, when I told you I loved you, every time you lied. Tears were streaming down my face. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. So instead, you let me find out in a cafe full of strangers. You let me sit there and defend you to my parents while you were carrying another man's baby. I never meant for it to happen that way. But it did happen that way, and now Mila has to live with the consequences of your choices. He turned to walk away, then stopped. You want to know the really sad part? If you had come to me 6 months ago and told me you were unhappy, told me you felt disconnected, I would have done anything to fix it. I would have quit my job, gone to counseling, whatever it took, because I thought our marriage was worth fighting for. It is worth fighting for, I said desperately. No, he said sadly. It was worth fighting for. Before you decided someone else was more important than your family. That night, I sat in my empty house. Connor had taken Mila to his parents for the evening and tried to process everything that had happened. The DNA results, Eliot's betrayal, Connor's ultimatum. My phone buzzed with messages from friends and family who'd heard about the test results. Some were supportive, others judgmental, but all of them wanted to know what I was going to do next. The truth was, I didn't know. My marriage was over, the father of my baby wanted nothing to do with us, and I was facing the possibility of losing primary custody of my daughter. For the first time since this whole mess began, I was forced to confront the reality of what I'd done. Not the justifications or excuses I'd been telling myself, but the actual impact of my choices on the people I claim to love. I destroyed my family for a man who'd abandoned me at the first sign of trouble. I'd traded a husband who loved me for a fantasy that had never been real, and now I had to live with the consequences. Courthouse, cold, sterile. 3 months since the law firm ambush, begged Connor, therapy offers, co-parenting pleas, all rejected. My office meltdown sealed it. Patricia branded me unstable, pushed supervised visits. All rise. Judge Martinez, 50s, stern, files digested. Pounding heart, adultery, deception, child welfare. Mrs. Hollis, pattern of dishonesty, poor judgment, unfit for primary care. Yet kids need both parents. Primary physical to Mr. Hollis. Mrs. Hollis, supervised 6 months, then review on stability. House to him, main earner, custodial. 30 days for your stuff. You pay own fees, pregnancy, new child, no obligation from him. Life dissolving live. Adjourned. Robert. Best we could get. Connor across aisle. Sad, not smug. Eyes met. Final. Outside. Mum. Iris. Lost everything. Stay with me till stable. Saw Connor buckle Mila. She. Mummy. Hugged tight. Daddy says I live with him and Grandma. Still see you? Always. Lie. Sterile room watcher. Connor. Not punishment. Her security. Chaos I made? Exactly. Consistency now. I can... Pregnant, no partner, no home, no income, impulsive history. Stung true. Prove it. Housing, job, decisions. Be the mom she needs. Drove off, alone. 6 months, cramped apartment, 2 jobs, baby Daniel. Eliot's ghost, never met him. Mila visits, awkward, distant. Closer to dad, grandma, new stepmom Sarah. Teacher, kind. School play. Happy family I torched. Worst, self-blame. Good man, daughter. Life, trashed for fantasy. Empty night, Daniel asleep. That poll sparked it all. Real answer, don't get there. Too late. Rebuild, hope for scraps. Window view. Their house, our house. Mila's bedtime without me. Choices made. Cost, everything. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.